Hello, my name is Cheryl Guido. I am the Vice Chair of the Disability in Greater Houston, in the Gulf Coast area. I am also a Vocational Rehabilitation Manager for the Workforce Solutions ER Services. I'm so honored to be here today. On behalf of the Disability In and the Texas affiliates, I would like to thank the Governor's Office, the Committee on People with Disabilities for leading the celebration and inviting us to be part of this great event. It is so very important to us to celebrate the ADA and its milestone of 30 years. Julia, next slide, please. Our presentation this morning is titled Business Partnerships for Disability Inclusion. I can't reiterate it enough how important this partnership is, because when the ADA was first signed in 1990, one of the most important areas addressed are the employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Today, we have several businesses that will share best practices and insights in their workplace. They will also be able to share challenges and successes. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my co-presenters this afternoon. Mr. Doug Carr is the president of Chase Source. Ms. Beth Painter, the HR specialist for Whataburger. Mr. Chris Schumard, HR professional from Retiba. Ms. Ann Hudson, accommodation specialist, Southwest Airline. And Mr. Aaron Banger, lead accessibility architect, AT&T. And he's also the chair of the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of the agenda that we have today. We are going to cover what Disability In is, why disability inclusion is important, the different affiliates in Texas. We're going to provide you with the business perspectives, the state of Texas resources, and of course, how to get involved, and we will be able to answer questions at the end. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, my name is Doug Carr. I'm the chair for the Disability in Houston, and I'm also president for Chase Source. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm one of the speakers that one of the presenters you're going to hear from today. But one of the first things I'd like to do is first introduce you to Disability In, if you're not familiar with who we are. Houston was one of the first, was the first affiliate chapter here in the state of Texas. And now we also have a Central Texas chapter and a North Texas chapter that you're going to hear from them a little bit further in the presentation with more details. But Disability In, it's a business-to-business organization. So what we do is we create a safe zone for businesses to come and talk and learn from one another and from us, and to give them the available resources to understand a little bit better about what it is to be an effective community leader when it comes to business disability inclusion, and also what it means to be a company that hires people with disabilities, how to do it, what's the proper way, and dispelling the myths and making them understand exactly what that means. Next slide, please. So why disability inclusion? Well, it's a changing workforce. We're all getting older. The one thing that we've all learned is we're going to pay taxes and we don't get younger. Every day we're a little bit older than we were the day before. But 82% of all disabilities are acquired through age. I can speak for myself. I am not a 20-year-old anymore, and my vision isn't what it used to be. My hearing, I tease my wife, she's my hearing eye wife. So when we're out, she has to help me understand what waiters are saying sometimes. But it's, when you think about people that are working within your organization, those that are getting older, they have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of experience. So you don't want to lose those individuals. So you have to learn how to accommodate whatever those disabilities may be that are arising out of age. Talent source, economists are estimating there's going to be a shortage of 10 to 15 million workers in the upcoming decade. There's a lot of baby boomers that are retiring. There's less and less people in each of the generations thereafter. So you may be losing several million baby boomers, but there may not be as many available individuals that will be backfilling those positions, or may not even have the same knowledge or experience that some of the baby boomers may have had. So if you're not looking at people with disabilities now as a viable resource for talent, companies are going to have to start doing that. And that's one of the things that Disability In helps educate local leaders understand. Next slide, please. So why disability inclusion? Again, good public relations. 92% of consumers surveyed felt favorable toward businesses who hire people with disabilities. I know when I go home, and I'm from Central Texas, there's a local nursery that 80% of the people that they hire are people with disabilities, and we frequent it. My wife and I, when we go back on the weekends sometimes, that's where we go and buy flowers, and it's because of their business practice and their business model. We want to support that. There's a Starbucks off of North 610 in Houston that hire people with vision impairment, and we frequent that when we go by. That's where we stop and get a cup of coffee. So we make it our purpose to help support companies that hire people with disabilities. There's a lot of other people that are doing the same exact thing. Increase worker productivity. People with disabilities are just as dependable and productive as other people. Everybody on this call understands that, but it's our job to make sure we educate employers to understand that, dispelling those myths. A lot of companies believe that their insurance costs are going to go up. There's higher absenteeism, that people fall out of the job, that it's going to cost them thousands and thousands of dollars to accommodate, when the average cost to accommodate is only about $313. I can speak from experience. It's been about 10 years back. I had an individual that was a valuable employee to us, but due to age, her vision had really deteriorated. And in order to extend her time with us and be able to make sure that she was still as productive as she's always been, and she worked with us for about another 7 years, we just had to accommodate her screen and that she could magnify it so that she could see things on email and on the internet. And she was as productive, if not more, for us. And it only cost us maybe $50 to accommodate. So a lot of times the accommodation is very little expense. Next slide, please. So it's a win-win strategy. When you look at the culture of caring and respect, you tend to gravitate to those kind of companies. And if you know that they take care of their people and they take care of their community, and in our community, we have people with disabilities, and that should be reflected in the workforce for every employer that you go to buy their products or services. And it's just a win-win. They're going to tell friends that they got a job there. Their community is going to grow. And before you know it, it's going to bring new clients to your company as well. Compliance is real. The passage of Section 503 of the Rehabilitation Act says that 7% of their workforce across all job categories must be from persons with disabilities. So I learned many, many years ago that what you respect is what's inspected. So this is going to be inspected. So it forces companies to be able to meet that criteria to get to their 7%. You would hope that everybody would do it on their own, but sometimes you have to force the rules and the laws in order to make sure that people are accommodating them. Next slide, please. I believe this is this.
Yep, that's me. So why should a company be involved with the local Disability In affiliate? Well, from a business perspective, being involved in our local chapter has really helped spread the message about disability here for me in the Houston area. So it keeps my company connected to multiple of wonderful community partners who bring a pipeline of candidates, qualified candidates, I should say, right to our door. So it just makes good business sense. We're able to exchange ideas on diversity and opportunities to share successes and challenges in the workplace. Also, it's a safe and interactive place to ask questions and have those candid conversations. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, there you go. So also, it establishes us as disability-friendly businesses in the community, and that results in attracting more qualified candidates for employment, new customers, and interesting fact that I looked up today was that, hold on, turn my page because I wrote it down, that there are the disposable income of adults with disabilities is 490 billion, and their discretionary income with people with disabilities is 21 billion. So it just makes good business sense to have people working in your business and to be open for that talent pool for your customers to see that going on as well. So you also just access your local talent pool and you know, bring in you know, a greater diverse to your business. Is this my
Does
slide?
it help if I took myself off mute?
I was gonna say, is this my slide?
It's Doug's.
I'm sorry. So this gives you a visual of the 3 different affiliates of the Disability In organization. So on the bottom right is the Greater Houston area. The green rectangle is the Central Texas, and it goes from the Waco area down to San Antonio, and Aaron's going to be able to speak more to that. And then in the upper right, in the orange, is the Dallas-Fort Worth and North Texas area that Ann's going to be able to speak to. So next slide, please. So Texas Affiliates Disability In. So I am the chair for the Greater Houston Disability In. Aaron represents the Central Texas, and Ann Hudson represents North Texas, and they're each going to speak to their particular organizations. Next slide, please. So the Greater Houston area, the board members on the call today is myself, Cheryl, Beth, and Chris, which were introduced. In our organization, we have several events throughout the year. And 2 of those, and I should preface this with, this is before the new normal. We had 2 hiring and employer seminars annually where we would have bring businesses in and do an educational seminar or conference with them. But due to COVID-19, we've had to back off of that. We've had some different virtual events, kind of like the one we're doing today, but we can't wait to get back to whatever that new normal is, where we can actually see people face to face and start having those events again live. Paving the Pathways to Success, which happens to be this Friday. Cheryl leads that up with her organization. And it's bringing kids with disabilities together and pairing them up with local companies in the market and teaching them and taking them through a project. At the end of that, they present their project results, and then there is a panel of judges, which I'm fortunate to be one of those for the last 5 years, and we judge them on their projects and their accomplishments, and along with what they've learned and how well they work together. And it's a moving experience because we've had kids come back years later and present to the new project of kids. And where we saw them when they presented during paving the pathways to where they are today is leaps and bounds. It's just amazing how much they've grown. And it's just kind of a start to that process in their journey. And then White Cane Day is something that Cheryl and her group also spearheads. And it's educating the community and with people with visual impairment, and in giving them an opportunity to be blindfolded and to go through an obstacle course with a cane and understanding what it feels like to be in somebody else's shoes. So if you're interested in the Greater Houston, this is my contact information, my email address, and then that's our P.O. box if you wanted to mail something to us.
Doug, I wanted to also add something very important. You are part of the Gulf Coast Workforce Board as a Disability In representative.
Yes. Cheryl and I actually are both on the Gulf Coast Workforce Development Board. And so it ties in directly to what we do with the Greater Houston Disability In Group. And there's a lot of resources that go back and forth and partnerships that have been very instrumental to us over the last, I guess time flies, but over the last 10 years. So thank you, Cheryl, for reminding me. And now Aaron's going to be speaking to the Central Texas affiliate. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Doug. You just said the word that I think greatly, if there's one word that explains what does disability and do, and that's partnerships. You know, disability inclusion generally in the workforce and supplier diversity programs and products and services and the customer service businesses offer, you know, that's really hard for any one organization to navigate by themselves. And there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to be aware of, and nobody, no matter where you are in the journey on disability inclusion, can do that by themselves. And so Disability In provides the place to learn from each other, to share your triumphs and even your failures. And those failures, you know, they obviously are not fun to go through, but to the extent that you can use that as a lesson to help your own organization, but to share that with other organizations, and collectively, we're a whole lot smarter than we are individually. And that's really what the Disability and local affiliates do, is allow companies and organizations in a particular area to get together in person, but virtually now, but you know, in Central Texas, given our area that we had that we cover, virtual had been something we've done in the past as well before the pandemic. But you can see here we've got a variety of different companies that participate in the work we do. And you know, I think one of the important things, and why I kind of put this up here, is that, you know, this is not just a big company issue. It's not a small company issue. It's not a technology issue. It's a business imperative for companies of all shapes and sizes and all industries. And but the disability inclusion may look a little different in those different organizations, but the big things, the things that really can move the needle for that organization, in terms of identifying talent, recruiting them in an inclusive way, supporting them in their job, helping them advance and grow their careers, as well as the other aspects of disability inclusion I mentioned. You know, that a lot of times the lessons we learn are universal and broadly applicable to lots of different businesses. So I would encourage businesses and organizations, you know, if you've kind of thought, well, you know, disability inclusion, that's a bridge too far for my organization. I don't have the resources. I don't have the support. You know, I'd say none of us do. None of us have nearly as what we need, what we know we need. But with partnerships through Disability In, the other companies, the perspectives, we can learn a whole lot more than we can do it by ourselves, and we become really a force multiplier for advancing the inclusion of people with disabilities in the workforce. And I also mentioned, you know, other areas of disability inclusion can branch out. We even, you know, had an interesting discussion about employee resource groups, and not all companies have that, but that's in terms of looking for internal allies within a company. Again, not feel like you're doing it alone. The employee base. Beth, you mentioned the $490 billion figure. I will give you another figure, which is $8 trillion. So if you look at the amount of disposable income and spending power that people with disabilities have or directly influence, and you take that worldwide, it's $8 trillion. And so making sure that your company is getting the right talent that Doug talked about, and making sure that you're meeting the needs of the community you serve through your business. People with disabilities are a large percentage of that, 15% globally, 25% depending on, you know, which government statistic you want to reference. Here in the U.S., almost one third, a little right shy of 30% of U.S. households have a member with a disability. So it just makes good business sense all around. So on the next slide, I've listed some of the events that we've done over the past couple years. And we've tried to provide events that, speak to that different levels of experience and maturity with disability inclusion. So, some companies and people there want to start with the basics. How do you talk about disability in the workplace? Is that how do we move beyond it's a taboo topic to really focusing on disability inclusion is part of the general diversity inclusion the dialogue that companies are having. Recruiting and hiring people with disabilities obviously is always a really popular topic and something that is in some ways universal across companies. How do you identify the right talent, and how do you make sure that your hiring processes and the tools you use to do that hiring are not creating barriers for people with disabilities? The Department of Labor did some research back in 2016, I think it was, and found that people with disabilities, almost half of them reported that the online application process they went through was difficult or impossible to navigate because of their disability. So right off the top, we, through maybe just not knowing if those online recruiting tools aren't accessible, then we're missing out as businesses on a tremendous pool of talent that can help our business and better reflect the communities that we operate in. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ann.
Thank you. Next slide. And I'll just echo many of the comments from the other affiliates. In North Texas, we serve the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. So we've actually hosted meetings both on the Dallas side of the community as well as the Fort Worth, because we're, in addition to trying to bridge the gaps between all of the different businesses locally, also the different communities of business, since there is somewhat of a distance here in our area. We're a younger affiliate. We're very much in a growth mode and a growth aspect, which has been very exciting for us. We currently have over 50 member companies with the same mission and the same goals as the other affiliates, providing that safe space for education and training and collaboration and best practices for resources to really help drive that conversation about inclusion at both large and small organizations across the DFW Metroplex. We haven't quite as many events as some of the other affiliates, but things that we have included in our quarterly meetings are similar best practices in recruiting, and particularly we did a role-playing session for interviewing for individuals with disabilities and what best practices for that look like, which was very well received by the participants. We've helped to connect service providers here locally with some of the corporations who are looking for that little bit of extra support and what does this process look like, and had a lot of success with that. We've done sessions on things like autism in the workplace, service and emotional support dogs in the workplace. So we really try to listen to our members as well and take the feedback of what types of information is most valuable to them and target our events in that in those forums in that area. Like everyone, we've shifted and we're working to a virtual model now. Our next meeting, August 25th, will actually be our first virtual session. So we're excited about that and really looking forward to the opportunities it opens up for us to broaden our base even more. So for those of you who might be interested, we'll be talking about kind of some of the practical lessons of COVID and the working from home culture as it relates to employees and others who may have a disability. So with that, again, most kind of just re-emphasizing some of the points that have already been made, and hope to have everyone get connected to your local affiliate because it really is a valuable resource for the business community.
Thank you, Ann and Aaron. The business perspectives, what are other businesses experiencing with respect to disability inclusion? And what are they doing? If you can go to the next slide, please. So building an inclusive workforce, what does that mean? Well, something that's not on this slide right now is, and we talked about old myths, but I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss opportunities. I think it's the perfect timing, if there's ever been a perfect time for people with disabilities, but it's the new wave of the workforce. You've heard about the stay-home order. You've heard about working remote. Everybody on this call right now is working remote. And in many cases, you're probably seeing a professional shirt, but probably have shorts on below the video. So that's just part of working remote. But that also, I believe, lends an opportunity for people with disabilities that they can work from home. A lot of companies were on the verge of wanting to do that before the pandemic, but they never really truly pulled the trigger to do it. They've been forced to do that. I was talking to a client yesterday that within 1 week, they sent 2,000 people remote. And in that transition, they gave them all laptops and desktops, but within 10 days, 2,000 people went from working in a brick and mortar to working remote from home. And they're foreseeing that probably 80% of that workforce is going to be working remote permanently. So if you're a person with a disability and maybe you have some mobility issues or you already have accommodations at the house, I think that lends some credibility that opens it up for companies to start looking even harder at people with a disability that is very capable of doing the job, but now gets away, it takes away from some of those obstacles that they thought they had in hiring people with disabilities. So it goes with the old myths that we talked about earlier. It's what is the cost of an accommodation? Are they gonna be able to get to work? Will they miss more work than they did? Well, if you're working from home, there's no reason to miss work. There is no traffic jams, there's no mobility issues, and you're already accommodated probably at home. So again, I think that does open it up for a lot of companies. And I think we're gonna see a wave of that over the next year or two as well. So as companies' workforce ages, we talked about that. Every one of us are gonna be in that category eventually. Diversity drives creativity and innovation. I think companies are only as good as the last new innovation that they came up with. And why not bring a whole different type of workforce in that can give you a different perspective. They can also give some good ideas on what people with disabilities, what do they look at when they look at a service company or a product or merchandise that they're purchasing. So employees with disabilities can provide a connection between your business and your community. We hear it all the time. It's not just people with disabilities, it's all kinds of different groups. But if your company does not reflect a fair representation of your community, then you're not doing a good job of hiring people in your area that really represents who you are. And disabilities, people with disabilities are part of that group. Next slide, please.
Oh, Doug, is there anything that Chris needs or would like to add on that? Prior slide.
Yeah, so one other thing I was going to mention there, part of the old myths that and so I come from the corporate America, and so one of the key issues that we have is attendance, and one of the key myths that we haven't brought up yet today is around people with disabilities have they're gone longer from work and more intermittent type leaves, and simple reality is I think. If you look at the data, there's people that miss work more because of their lifestyles with eating habits and consumption of alcohol and smoking. They miss more days than a person would who actually has a disability. And one of the other things that wasn't mentioned up here is, one of the first steps that an employer has to do to progress the conversation is to basically start having the conversation. Without having that conversation, you can't go from point A to point B. The simple fact is 90% of all disabilities are not physical. And so for people to come forward and tell you that they have a disability, it requires a situation, an area where people feel comfortable conveying that information to their employer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So the disability and around the state have community and state
partners that's already, I think Aaron mentioned that. Those partners provide them with information and resources. One of the most important partner and source of qualified applicants with disabilities is the Texas Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation Services. We call it VR. So the VR program provides services for people with disabilities to help them prepare for obtain a job. They might have to retain a job or actual advancement in employment. So the VR program supports two customers. We have the employers, the business community, and we also have the individuals with disabilities seeking employment, what we call job seekers. The services, some of the services, but these are not inclusive. We have a lot more services that we provide to the employers and job seekers. Just wanted to mention a few. But the employers' side, we provide disability awareness, education, and training. We partnered with the Disability Inn to provide these training and awareness presentations. Work site analysis, hiring and retention assistance, accommodations assessment, and referral of qualified applicants. So we call, I like to call ourselves the supplier of the supplier chain. We are the ones who are supplying the qualified applicants. They just happen to have a disability. But that's how we partner with employers. We have other services that we provide. The job seekers, we provide career counseling guidance, job search assistance if they're looking for jobs, disability related skills training. We also provide academic and vocational training, whether it's an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, proprietary school, certification, apprenticeship program. We have all that and we provide that. And at times we do graduate schools too. We provide various assistive technology, durable medical goods, home modification if it's related to work, and probably a lot of those with this new normal that we have, we might have a lot more home modification because people are working from home now more than they are working outside. And of course, we have supported employment. Next slide, please. One of our goals is to improve employment opportunities for qualified individuals with disabilities by working in partnership with the local workforce boards and employers. It's like partnership, partnership, partnership. That's most important. I think it's mentioned several times. Without the partnership, this will not work. We have 28 workforce boards in Texas, and we work in partnership with every single one of them. Many of our offices, the VR offices, are already integrated in the various workforce centers. And the other offices that are right now standalone offices are on their way to integrating with the rest of them. And next slide, please. The state of Texas resource is Melinda Paninsky. She supports the employers all over the state of Texas. You might already know her. She is the contact for the Disability Inn and also for many of the employers in the state. I'm the contact for my local board area for the Disability Inn and also, of course, Doug in the employer side. You should already know your local VR contact, but if you don't, please don't hesitate to contact Melinda. I have her information on the slide. It's 512-284-0057. And I could also facilitate the conversation with a local VR contact if you don't know already. And I can refer you to the local offices if you would like. And the next slide. I think we're taking answers now. Also, one thing that I would like to point out, we started with 1 affiliate in Texas, and as everybody said already, we grew to 3, and we're proud of that. When Doug showed the map, most of the affiliates are on one side, so hopefully in the coming near future, we will have affiliates in the West Texas and up in the upper Panhandle area, that would be great. That will probably encompass all of the state of Texas. We would love for any businesses out there to start an affiliate up in the Panhandle in the West Texas area.
And Cheryl, is there, and I'll echo that, which is last fall, we had our Governor's Committee meeting in El Paso celebrating our Lex Freedom Employment Awards and National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I know there's a lot of very committed businesses out there, good partnerships with Workforce Solutions, Borderplex. So I think all the right resources are in place there, and I think everybody out there benefit by another affiliate. And folks have questions about what it would take to create an affiliate. I know Cheryl and Doug were awesome when we were looking to get started as an affiliate in Central Texas. I know when Ann and Rick and Mary and others were looking to create one in North Texas. There was Central Texas and Greater Houston to draw on, and certainly as affiliates, we'd be happy to help mentor and support growing, whether it's in the El Paso area or any other part of Texas, to support the establishing affiliate in those areas to help the businesses with their disability inclusion journey. And that's on top of the help that the Disability In national organization provides. Lynn Kirkbride is the affiliate development support there, and she's fantastic, very communicative and hands-on, and wants to see the affiliates succeed. It's not, the overall national organization is that much stronger with the affiliates.
Thank you, Aaron. And me being part of the VR side and the supplier side, it is very helpful for us to go to the businesses that are part of Disability In to, if we have other businesses that are reluctant or maybe have some questions or doubts about hiring some of our applicants, it's very, it's so good to let them know, if you would like, I could refer you to another business that have experience with hiring and even, hiring people with disabilities, because they know, and it's in a safe, it's a safe zone for them. It's a a safe zone for them to talk to other HR specialists, other businesses that have been through that, instead of us telling them, because we are on the other side. So thank you to the affiliates, to the employers that take their time and be part of this group. It is much appreciated. I think that we have the next slide, how to get involved.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I know on the chat line, somebody was asking for the contact information, and this slide will help give that to you. And the presentations will be available after this. But I'm Doug Carr. I'm the point of contact for the Greater Houston area. Then Aaron and Tanya, you see their contact information for Central Texas. And then Ken Cummings is the membership chair for North Texas. So if you're interested, you can take a snapshot of this or wait for the presentation to come out. But this will be the contact information that you're looking for. Next slide, please.
And I think it's the next slide is just reiterating who are I believe the presidents on each of the affiliates.
Yes. Yep. And then there's we wanted to make sure we showed a good representation of partners that we have as well. So that concludes our presentation today. I didn't know if we wanted to take any of the questions that are on the chat line, Cheryl.
I believe so. Julia, are we able to read the questions? Would you like?
Yes, there's 2 questions. I was able to answer some of them. Will TWC provide financial support for home support at work at home?
I hope that I answered that, but the answer is that all the services that we provide are related to employment. So whether it's employment from home, employment from a building, or wherever you are, we will possibly could provide you with services in order to get a job, maintain a job, or advance in a job. So yes.
Okay, great. Next question says, will you be talking about ERGs today and their value?
I believe that Aaron mentioned a little bit about ERG.
Yeah. Yeah, I can I brought that up, and you know, the employee resource groups, they also go by the name business resource groups or affinity groups. You know, whatever they're called, they are you know, and they're not necessarily just specific to disability, but within an organization, groups of employees that have an interest in a particular topic area, particularly around a diversity group. So can be based on race or gender or LGBTQ plus, generations, those sorts of things. And disability is maybe not a universal one, but it's certainly a common one. And in a company or organization's journey on disability inclusion, to the extent that your organization already has a disability employee resource group, that's a great place to start. There are allies. They are open to what you want to do, and the leadership team oftentimes has direct access to the businesses or the organization's overall leadership. One of the reasons from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, a lot of those ERG, BRGs get created. So they may be able to have some different avenues to advocate for particular things that that you as an individual advocate on disability inclusion may not have or may not have previously interacted with. They're also a great sounding board in terms of getting an understanding of what does this organization, what does the company really need to do to create a welcoming environment that allows people with disabilities to bring their whole self to work. Employee resource groups can also be, let's say, parents of children with disabilities. And so it can be a conversation of how can the company better support them, providing flexible work arrangements or certain benefits, those sorts of things. So they're a great resource. Obviously, like every company and organization, the ERG, BRGs associated with them are going to be a little different. How they're formed, who makes them up, how connected they are, how active they are, and so forth. But by all means, find out if your organization has one and become allies with them. There's a partnership where that partner with them on identifying what is a good roadmap. How do you get that roadmap integrated into the overall business plan to think about different aspects of disability inclusion. And I mentioned them before. I'll kind of reiterate from a national disability organization. And as Ann said, the affiliates really champion the same principles. The National Disability Organization really has three main areas it talks about. So certainly workforce is front and center. That's where the Disability used to be called the United States Business Leadership Network, really got the start is on that hiring side, employing people with disabilities and bringing them into a company or organization's workforce. And I'd still say that is a very dominant and a big topic in the discussions we have. Two other areas that companies look into with disability inclusion. One is supplier diversity. So buying from historically underutilized businesses, kind of use the state term, or buying from minority businesses. That can be certainly people of color, women-owned businesses. When you start getting into veteran-owned businesses, now it starts overlapping a lot with disability-owned business enterprises. And the National Disability Organization has a certification program for disability owned businesses and veteran with disability owned businesses. So if you want to look into that to get that certified as part of your own company or organization's supplier diversity program, to recognize that that is the same mission as your overall supplier diversity program. And then more generally, the marketplace. So making sure that your customer service channels, the products and services that you offer to the public are themselves inclusive. You know, to match up the talk and actions about hiring people with disabilities with products and services you offer, and that's not an either or thing. So you know, my day job is at AT&T, and some of the products and services we offer are great tools that our employees use on an everyday basis, and may very well use as an accommodation as part of that. So making sure your products and services are accessible not only serves your customer base, but may actually turn right around and support inclusion in the workplace.
Thank you, Aaron. I don't think there are any questions, other questions that we haven't answered.
Cheryl, there is one person who has their hand raised, would like to speak. I'm going to go ahead and allow them to do it. Let's see. Selena, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
That was inadvertent. I'm sorry. My arm hit the key. I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right, so I guess that is it.
I think there's another one that was just added. It says, another one says historically.
So one more question. It says historically, do you see an increase in HR involvement with disability? What about CIT?
Doug or Chris, Aaron, or Ann?
Yeah, I can. I was going to say I could speak to the human resource side. Absolutely. I think that in many cases, a lot of the connections that we start with when it comes to disability and affiliate is through the HR department, is because they're looking for training resources, valuable resources to train their managers and their leaders on what it means to hire people with disabilities. If anybody else wants to add to that, or and I apologize, I'm not sure what CIT is.
Doug, this is Aaron. I'll kind of jump in there. I do think most companies, when they start on looking at disability inclusion, tend to start in HR, and that's either because they are specifically looking for how to be more inclusive in their hiring. That may be just organic from within their organization. You mentioned at the beginning the Section 503 requirement, so we do see companies that are federal contractors needing to up their game on hiring people with disabilities, and the 7% utilization goal that 503 requires. So those are probably one or two places. I'll say HR organizations tend to be where diversity and inclusion initiatives are housed and started, and so not just on the talent acquisition, talent attraction side, but also on the diversity and inclusion side. You know, that tends to be where a lot of interest comes from. In Austin, it's maybe more specific Austin thing. We certainly have had organizations that come more from the technology side and accessibility of technology. That can be, again, could be sort of more of a compliance focused, or it could be more part of a business mission that the business is established but doesn't feel like they necessarily have all the answers. You know, starting with, you know, one question that comes up a lot, particularly from the accessibility side, is where should accessibility sit in an organization? Where should this disability focus? And the answer is, you know, going to depend based on the organization. I always say the disability inclusion, the accessibility program should sit wherever they have the biggest voice within their organization. And you know, if that's in HR, that's great. If that's in compliance, you know, that's a good place to start. If it's within the technology organization, I'm going to guess CIT is probably IT, information technology organization. If that's where it begins and that's where there's a champion. Usually employee resource groups already have an executive sponsor of some sort. And so sometimes just their organization is a place to start. So wherever the organization starts, as I said, it tends to be HR, but that's certainly by no means the only place it begins. And once that planning, that journey, the greater exposure to other companies and how they're doing it really helps open eyes to, oh, I need to look for partners, even if it's housed within HR. I need to start partnering with HR, or HR needs to partner with, let's say, the IT organization, because a lot of accommodations these days, job accommodations, start with technology tools, and traditionally HR does not have a lot of technologists in it, and they need to partner with their technology organization to help them understand how to make some of those tools that are being used by employees accessible.
Hopefully that
And I see a question in here on supplier diversity programs and National Disability Organization. So disabilityin.org, without the colon in the middle of that, is the national organization. I think there's 25 or 30 affiliates across the country, including the 3 here in Texas, have the same basic mission as the overall organization. Companies can be members in the local affiliate, companies can be members in the national organization, company can be involved in both, in multiple affiliates. A lot of times their companies are involved in both because the national organization is, especially for companies that tend to be national, it's a great resource for them nationally. It's a way for them to get involved at the national and even international level. But from a hiring standpoint, from a how are we going to make this work on the ground standpoint, how do we, meet with folks that are maybe understanding the local economy and the work that's done. The affiliates are a great vehicle really to help drive action at an individual and local level. So, that's going to be an organization, a business's decision on how they want to get involved there. But I know a lot of companies are involved at both the national and the local level, just because the specific benefits that involvement at those 2 levels provide companies. On the supplier diversity, I'm not a supplier diversity person. I can kind of describe it at a high level like I did, but I'm sure we can get some information out about the contact at the national organization that focuses on supplier diversity issues and can help a company do that. But again, at the local affiliate, you're going to have companies that have supplier diversity programs and can be able to speak to that. Like I know in I think Ann in North Texas, I think Fidelity is David, I think, is involved in that and has certainly shared his experiences building out incorporating disability as part of that program. Just real quick, if you go to disabilityin.org, under the main menu item, what we do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th down is supplier diversity, and that's got information about disability-owned businesses. And if you are a disability-owned business, if you own a business and have a disability, to get certified there, but also and can get registered in a directory, but also has information and further contacts about, there's a contact us right at the bottom there that can connect you with disability and resource that can speak to supplier diversity and disability specifically.
Thank you, Aaron. And I also wrote the address of the disability in on the chat room.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't see any more questions on the chat or the Q&A.
There's not any other questions. I think we will conclude our presentation. Thank you to all the presenters, and you guys have a great day and stay safe out there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.